Have you ever noticed how communicating with some people creates an inexplicable feeling of discomfort? Everything seems fine, smiles, nods, words of support, but something inside you seems to scream about insincerity. There are no visible reasons for concern, no evidence of deception, no conflicts or betrayals. However, something in the energy of this person seems fake, their praise sounds empty, their laughter seems strained, and a momentary pause flashes in their eyes before they feign joy at your successes. This is not a simple coincidence, and you are not going crazy. Psychologists call this the shadow side of personality, the dark, hidden part of the human psyche. It hides behind a mask of courtesy, polite compliments and formal greetings, but passions seethe within: envy, resentment, malice, and hidden rivalry. Ignoring this inner voice can be costly. Emotional burnout, mental exhaustion, and even physical ailments are just some of the consequences. After all, when hatred is hidden behind a mask of love, it turns into a slow-acting poison. It does not strike suddenly, but gradually undermines your strength, hiding behind friendly hugs. So how do you recognize this hidden threat and protect yourself from its destructive effects? The answer to this question may be the key to your well-being. Chapter 1. Sarcasm, a contemptuous mockery, a poisoned irony, hiding behind the mask of a joke. Who among us has not heard the phrase, "Oh, come on, why are you so sensitive? I was just kidding." It sounds light and carefree, but in fact, each such joke leaves a painful mark. But what if you look at this not as a harmless game of words, but as a weapon skillfully disguised as a smile? After all, sarcasm is not always harmless. Sometimes it is real surgery of hatred. Sarcastic people are well aware of other people's complexes, whether it be weight, origin, or past mistakes, and ruthlessly pick at these wounds time after time, to the general laughter of others. The victim of sarcasm feels cornered, experiences embarrassment and confusion, but if they try to fight back, they are immediately portrayed as problematic. Calm down, why are you being so dramatic? But let's call things by their proper names. This is nothing more than emotional manipulation. As Carl Jung wisely noted, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. However, people who do not want to look inside themselves project this irritation outward, turning others into their personal emotional garbage dump. And then their sarcasm is no longer comedy, but contempt, and their laughter is just a carefully crafted camouflage. If their jokes invariably sting, if there is an inexplicable anxiety in their presence, if only bitterness and tears remain after a fun pastime in the company, then this is no longer friendship, but a real psychological war. They don't just joke, they methodically and skillfully cause pain, leaving no visible traces. Chapter 2. Artful sabotage, a stab in the back under the guise of goodwill. Surely in the life of every person there was a friend who was distinguished by an amazing forgetfulness regarding important details that could radically change the situation, or someone who, seemingly out of good intentions, gave advice that only led to a worsening of the situation. Such people tend to miss significant events, are not around at moments when their support is needed, citing eternal employment. A single case can be attributed to chance, life circumstances. Repeating twice is already a suspicious coincidence, but when such situations become systematic, a legitimate question arises: is this not a manifestation of deliberate sabotage? And the most insidious thing is that the blow is not struck openly, but on the sly under the guise of friendly embraces. As Carl Jung warned, people who feel inferior often try to belittle others instead of striving for their own growth. The successes of others cause them dislike, since every step forward reminds them of their own stagnation. And what do they do in such a situation? They seek to keep others in the shadows, to muffle their potential, using methods that seem harmless. Forgetfulness, dubious advice, hypocritical encouragement. In such cases, you can often hear the phrase, "I just wanted to help." However, deep down, these people are well aware of their true intentions. A particular danger is the fact that such individuals create the appearance of support while being a quiet storm gradually undermining self-confidence. If someone systematically hinders development, ignores important events and fuels doubts, this is not a manifestation of care, but a desire for control. Such people do not want to lose those around them, but only as long as they remain in a subordinate position. Chapter 3. Unspoken rivalry, where every triumph becomes a battlefield. Imagine a scenario: you're sharing joyful news, be it a promotion, the launch of a promising new project, or simply a small but significant victory. You anticipate a genuine smile, perhaps a friendly hug, but instead you hear, "Oh yeah, by the way, guess what I just accomplished?" Suddenly, the moment of triumph no longer belongs to you. You radiate light, and your interlocutor seems to dim it. You strive upwards, and they soar even higher, not to share your joy, but to overshadow your achievement. This rivalry rarely manifests openly and noisily, but it is felt constantly, in the barely perceptible change in tone of voice, in the strained smile, in the desperate desire to match or surpass you. As Carl Jung aptly noted, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. However, instead of self-analysis, such people enter into competition, because what they see in you, personal growth, happiness, purposefulness, is what they have neglected in their own lives. Therefore, they turn every celebration into a leaderboard, every congratulation into an arms race. It's not that they hate your success, but that your light makes their own shadow seem even denser. You didn't apply to participate in the competition, but they did it for you, silently, secretly, tirelessly. If you constantly feel that your victories unleash invisible wars, if your happiness provokes passive comparison games, then you are not growing with a friend, but surviving next to a silent opponent. This is not support or camaraderie, but a battle of egos, artfully disguised as friendly communication. Chapter 4. Hypocritical benevolence, a smile without a spark in the eyes. There are people whose words seem right. "I'm proud of you. I'm so happy for you." "That's just incredible," they say, but the heart refuses to believe in this ostentatious joy. Deep down one feels a gaping void, an absence of warmth. The gaze of these people wanders aside, the tone of voice lacks sincerity, and when support is really needed, they are nowhere to be found. True friends are not limited to words of care. They are always there. They share feelings, cry together in grief, and rejoice in moments of triumph and support in difficult times. False friends, on the other hand, masterfully play the disappearance act. They are not around in moments of highs or lows, and when they do appear, their energy seems alien, cold, and indifferent, as if they are soulless mechanisms. Carl Jung called this phenomenon ego dissociation, a state in which a person is so emotionally detached that they lose the ability to make genuine human contact. These people do not hate, but they are not capable of loving either. They only skim the surface of life, uttering pleasant words, but never giving the most important thing: presence, empathy, and soul connection. If a person is constantly absent when the soul desperately needs support, if their kindness seems only a learned response, then this is not friendship, but merely a performance. And no matter how skillfully the script is written, there will always be a void hiding behind a strained smile. Chapter 5. Control under the guise of care, the most insidious form of manipulation. It all starts with affectionate phrases. "This is solely for your well-being. In time you will realize I am only trying to protect you from suffering." Such words envelop you with a sense of security and protection, but in the depths of your soul, a vague anxiety creeps in. The shoulders involuntarily droop, enthusiasm gradually fades, and the voice treacherously trembles when one has to defend one's own decisions, because behind this imaginary concern lies undisguised control. Manipulators do not resort to shouting or physical violence. Their impact is subtle and imperceptible, like a snake slowly coiling around its victim and whispering lullabies. Share a new idea, and a warning about its riskiness will immediately follow. Dreams out loud are shattered by words of unreality. A decision made is questioned because of assumptions about insufficient consideration. The most dangerous thing in this situation is that manipulators are not always wrong. Sometimes their advice seems reasonable and their instructions mature, but instead of inspiring, they constrain. Their words generate doubts about one's own strengths, and soon there is a need for their approval instead of relying on one's inner voice. Carl Jung brilliantly noted that people who are unable to cope with their own inner chaos strive for domination over others in order to gain a sense of security. Their lives are full of confusion, their emotions are in disarray, and instead of healing, they choose control, which gives them an illusory sense of order. Those around them may be skeptical not about a person's potential, but out of a desire to maintain control over them, skillfully playing a game for the long term. Instead of direct pressure, they resort to conditioning tactics, shaping a reality around the individual in which they begin to feel a need for their advice and approval, fearing to make decisions independently and fail. This raises a legitimate question. Can we consider sincere care that systematically generates feelings of helplessness, insecurity, and dependence to be genuine? True support is meant to inspire, while false care shackles a person. True love is expressed in believing in another, even in the event of their downfall, and being there for them. False love, on the other hand, insists on following someone else's script, presenting it as a manifestation of safety. Often such behavior is disguised as protection, but in reality it is a form of possession. If someone persistently seeks to determine a person's life path, control their pace, influence their thoughts, and invariably hides behind a mask of care, it is necessary to distance oneself and ask, is this person really protecting, or are they protecting their power? While sincere support empowers, control disguised as care enslaves, depriving one of freedom of choice and independence. Chapter 6 is dedicated to the insidious world of gossip and criticism that unfolds behind a person's back. The author describes a situation where someone's appearance in society causes a sudden change in atmosphere. Smiles fade, and glances become evasive. This is a clear sign that intrigues have been woven and distorted information spread behind the person's back. Gossip is a weapon of cowards who prefer to undermine a person's reputation surreptitiously instead of open confrontation. Gossipers do not bother with analyzing actions. Their goal is to discredit the personality. They skillfully manipulate words, sow doubts about motives, and undermine the trust of others, often remaining unnoticed. Their tactics are subtle. They avoid direct accusations, contenting themselves with hints and undertones sufficient to generate suspicion and alienation. At the same time, they maintain a hypocritical smile, concealing their true intentions. The reasons for this behavior are deeply rooted in psychology. As Carl Jung astutely noted, the brighter the light of a personality, the thicker the shadow it casts in the eyes of others. People who are insecure feel uncomfortable in the presence of those who confidently follow their path. Instead of striving for self-improvement, they try to belittle others. Gossip becomes a way for them to cope with feelings of inadequacy. Another person's success is perceived as a threat. Their confidence highlights their own shortcomings, and their harmony disrupts their internal chaos. What drives these people? They resort to, behind the scenes, intrigues, striking blows from under the table. They shower you with a stream of venomous words that will never reach your ears directly, and then, without batting an eye, shake your hand as if nothing had happened. But the truth is that gossip and rumors say much more about the gossiper than about the person who is the subject of the rumors. In fact, it is not your reputation that is being judged, but the moral character of those who spread the rumors. People who live in harmony with themselves do not feel the need to belittle and destroy others. Conversely, those who refuse to face their inner demons project them onto others. Therefore, the next time you feel an inexplicable change in attitude, when you enter a room where the air seems to have turned colder, remember, these malicious whispers are not your shame. They are their own desperate cry for help. And while they plot behind your back, continue to move forward confidently, because your dignity and silence are a manifestation of high class, which sounds much louder than any slander. Chapter 7. Absence of joy for someone else's success. Emotional alienation that speaks for itself. They were there in difficult times when life seemed unbearable, when everything collapsed before your eyes. They were there, but at the very moment when you began to rise, get back on your feet, when you finally began to reap the rewards of your efforts, an ominous silence ensues. Not a single sincere word of support, not a drop of joy, not the slightest hint of pride in your achievements, not even a fake smile. You share joyful news with them, and in response you get a dry cool. You talk about a new job, a victory, achieved progress, and they just nod indifferently and immediately change the subject. You feel an icy chill, this subtle but tangible emotional emptiness, and it causes unbearable pain. What is the reason for this behavior? The fact is that when a person is in a vulnerable position, they do not cause concern. They are understandable and predictable. Their failures, paradoxically, give others a sense of superiority and self-confidence. However, when someone starts showing growth, success, and development, they involuntarily become a living reproach to those who hesitate to change. In such a situation, hypocritical congratulations become commonplace. People may say words of support, but their true attitude betrays itself, the absence of genuine joy in their eyes, a flat, unemotional tone of voice. Deep down, there's a sense of falseness, an unwillingness to see someone else's triumph, because every step forward for a successful person becomes a painful reminder of their own stagnation. As Carl Jung astutely observed, the inability to sincerely rejoice in another's happiness indicates an internal conflict. Success becomes a mirror, reflecting not the joy of the victor, but one's own dissatisfaction and stagnation. Instead of being inspired and following suit, people distance themselves, and it's not that the successful person has changed, but that their transformation serves as a reminder of their own inaction. It's painful to realize that those who supported you in difficult times are unable to share the joy of victories. However, it's important to understand that this is their personal struggle, not a reflection of anyone else's shortcomings. Chapter 8. Nonverbal Signals. Revelations Hidden from View. In the world of human communication, words can be skillfully manipulated, smiles are honed to perfection, and compliments are learned like mantras. However, there's an aspect that remains beyond control: body language, the true indicator of feelings and intentions. When a person doesn't feel genuine sympathy, their true emotions may remain hidden behind a mask of politeness. They may say the right words, express joy for someone else's successes, but their body will betray their true feelings. While the lips utter courtesies, the body cries out about hidden disapproval. The smile becomes strained and unnatural, like a fleeting vision that hasn't fully formed. The gaze doesn't light up with sparks of joy, and eye contact is avoided. The body turns away slightly, creating distance, and the tone of voice lacks warmth. The energy emanating from the person seems foreign and false. This feeling permeates the atmosphere even before the first word is spoken. And this is not a figment of the imagination, not an exaggeration. It's a manifestation of ancient wisdom embedded in every person, intuition. As Carl Jung aptly put it, the unconscious always speaks through the body. Even when words lie, the body involuntarily reveals the truth. There's a secret that often remains unspoken. When a person experiences envy, hatred, insecurity, or rivalry, their nervous system reacts instantly. There may be a smile on the face, but the jaw clenches involuntarily. The shoulders rise in a sign of tension, breathing becomes shallow, and blinking increases. The gaze is averted when successes are mentioned, applause is delayed by a second, and hugs lack warmth and sincerity. The body leans away, avoiding direct contact. This isn't just a coincidence, but the subtlest emotional signals, barely perceptible refractions of truth that the subconscious registers long before the mind realizes what's happening. Intuition, this ancient survival mechanism, arose long before the advent of language. Ancestors relied on infallible instincts, body language, fleeting changes in facial expressions, intonations of voice, and even eloquent silence. Humans are genetically predisposed to sense danger, even if it's hidden behind a mask of benevolence and a feigned smile. That's why, in the presence of a well-wisher, there's an inexplicable feeling of discomfort, heaviness in the chest, and sudden fatigue, as if the temperature in the room has suddenly dropped. The subconscious perceives the dissonance between the words spoken and the energy emanating from the person, which is a kind of glitch in the matrix, a warning signal of danger. Unfortunately, most people prefer to ignore these premonitions because they've been taught since childhood to put politeness above their own feelings. What's the conclusion from all this? What should be done when recognizing signs of insincerity? It's not necessary to engage in open confrontation, expose the ill-wisher, or harbor hatred towards them. It's enough to simply protect your inner world, which is a priceless gift too often given to people who don't deserve it. It's time to set clear boundaries, stop making excuses, stop hoping for recognition, and most importantly, stop wasting your energy on those who only spread darkness around them in return. You should remember that not everyone who is around you is a true ally. Some people surround you only to watch your every move, waiting for the right moment to strike. In modern society, you rarely see open aggression. Much more often, people strike from behind, with hypocritical smiles, insincere compliments, and hidden ill will. In this regard, every individual faces a dilemma, whether to continue seeking recognition from those who secretly envy and compete, or to focus on personal growth and emotional well-being. After all, true self-love flourishes where feigned sympathy and false feelings end.